Slay.
We're going to talk about Earl Nelson today. Earl the Pearl. Yes?
Earl the Pearl. You know, Lee Asher was the first person to tell me many years ago that he felt that card magic was a lot like the Prince song Diamonds and Pearls. And
Well,
Mike
for
Douglas, the bird magician in Las Vegas, who also could do a Prince impression, agreed. He was at that conversation. And it's true. So Lee was a bit of a diamond, flashy, but Earl was the ultimate pearl. So if you like it smooth and graceful, slow, beautiful, impossible sleight of hand, Earl Nelson, he's your cat.
a lot of people don't know this about Earl, but back when the professor Di Vernon was in his 70s and he was like finding his new life where he was a mentor to those guys at the Magic Castle, there was only a handful of people who were able to sort of achieve that Vernon touch, from great in-depth study with Vernon. And that's, Larry Jennings and Bruce Irvine and Michael Skinner. But the other is Earl Nelson, widely known to have that touch himself. Um,
Yeah.
Earl was a man who hung out at the castle when we were there, and he's a very talented close-up magician, no doubt.
When I picture Earl Nelson, I often think if card magic had smooth sounds of the 70s, it would be Earl was kind of the yacht rock of magic, right? He was so smooth.
Definitely a product of his times, right? I mean, he was in the highlight of his career when he was the most famous. It seemed like it was the late 70s or so, and that seems like that's right about that time that stuff would have been happening, and he was probably a guy in that scene, and the people that were in that scene were definitely coming to the castle to see him, and I'm sure it was just perfect for the times. I'm sure he fit right in with that style of magic that he sort of pioneered.
You've all seen those groovy pictures of Mark Wilson, and what's the Alan Wakeling, all those groovy pictures in those Alan Wakeling, Mark Wilson books. A lot of flared collars, a lot of jumbo cards and unbuttoned shirts and medallions. Earl was on the scene in that time. So after we get started with the show, after we get started watching a little bit of Earl's magic, we'll pop in and I'll tell a little bit of a quick story about Earl Nelson going to Las Vegas to perform at Caesar's Magical Empire and needing to consult his bestie, Mark Wilson, for a little bit of performance advice about performing in the big LV. Oh, look at that. Magic
Actually,
Ballad.
we were talking
Midnight
a little
special.
bit, several of us, before we came out here, and we were, someone brought up the point of, have ever embarrassing incidents happened to you, when you've just been about to do a show? And I recalled one that happened to me. I was about to go into one of my favorite effects, which is cutting the aces from a shuffled pack of cards. When a gentleman that was sitting over here reached over very politely and took the deck of cards in his hands and plopped them down in front of him. Very methodical. There wasn't anything I could do. I mean, I didn't want to embarrass the gentleman. He was very nice, He cut the pack like this, and he turned half of it face up. So he had about half face up, half face down like that. Then he proceeded very methodically. The guy obviously knew how to handle cards. He shuffled the face-up cards into the face-down cards, just like that. He wasn't content to do that only once. He did it a couple of times like that, very neatly. I was very impressed with the whole thing. But I didn't know quite what I was going to do.
Does it very neatly.
To get out of this, he very neatly squared the cards up once again like that. And then just to make sure that everything was all right, he picked the cards up and looked through them like that to make sure he'd shuffled them very neatly, and he had. Give them a cut, and he put them right down in front of me again. Well, I thought the only thing I could probably do at that point was to go into the original effect that I had in mind and try to cut 1, 2, 3. Well, 3. The fourth one could be a little bit of a problem, you see, because of the terrible condition that he left the deck in, all face up, face down. So the first thing I have to do is straighten out his mess like that, so that all the cards are facing the proper way. That's 3 out of 4 aces. The last one, the ace of spades, is a little bit more difficult. If you watch the exact center of the deck closely enough, you'll see one card and one card alone reverse itself.
Whoop. That's nice.
Wouldn't it be nice? Oh, yeah. Thank you.
The smooth sounds of Earl Nelson.
got to pause that, right? Because
Yacht
right now
magic.
you can see that this was originally taken from a tape called Earl Nelson Unchained After Midnight.
Yeah.
Because you can see that, you know, you've never even imagined anyone delivering a classic Triumph presentation with an in Earl's rendition, because it's the only way Earl can be. The gentleman who ripped the cards from his hands was gracious and kind and incredibly well-mannered and quite skillful with cards. Did y'all notice that?
Did notice that.
I did.
He's very kind. He doesn't like any controversy. This guy stole the deck from you. Well, I could see you could handle cards very nicely, and who am I to stop a man like that?
And this may sound silly, but have you ever seen such beautiful slip cuts in your life?
Oh, beautiful.
All of it's very elegant, right? It's all it's unhurried. There's no forceful motions. It's very, very clean and beautiful.
I find it to be a very soothing show, and I love it. I love it so much.
Agreed.
I can't wait to see what Earl does next. Yeah, it was incredible, you know, because Triumph is about a man that takes the cards from you, says, let me shuffle those cards. He's drunk, you know, and he turns half the cards face up. He doesn't even realize he's doing it. And he jams the two halves together. But Earl does it sweet and soft and smooth. So smooth.
And Earl can see the bright side of everything, right? This guy was trying to mess up my trick, but I could see he could handle cards well, and who am I to stop this man? And he let the thing happen. I think it's a very good reflection of his personality, right? He found a way to get it in there, even though it's supposed to be that he's having like a fight because it's Triumph, right? He's like, well, I'm not that kind of guy to go down that road, right? It's just really cool.
And it's not always the presentation. It's the classical presentation. It's the exact trick as written, which is it's a fine presentation for that trick, you know?
You know, I think it's something interesting we should keep in mind is when you see that, I mean, that's like 1970s, right?
Yeah, it's got to be like 77,
So
78.
when you're looking at that Triumph presentation, I mean, when did that book, wasn't the first place that appeared Stars of Magic? Is that right or no? Is it way before that?
No,
I think that's the first time in print.
Yeah. So it's like, and that's 70s. So like when you're seeing that presentation, this is a fresh new trick.
Late 50s, early 60s. So it's been around for a minute, but yeah, I think it's the other thing.
Now it's 50 years later. You know what I mean?
But it is the classical presentation for that effect, you know, because it's conflict, right? If you don't have conflict, like who cares? Why are you shuffling them face up and face down? Like you hear some people do presentations where they have some sort of contrived reason, and sometimes it's just that I take the cards and turn half face up and half face down because I can, and then I can write them because I can. But when it's a story of a guy took them and he was drunk and he didn't even know he was shuffling them and they were face up and face down, like that's real conflict. And now you have to use magic. Magic has to solve the day, and that's, you know, I think that's a pretty compelling presentation.
Yeah, definitely.
Is this version here in Earl's book Variations?
Don't ask me to commit to stuff like that right now.
Couldn't say.
I bet there's something similar. I mean, because I was so busy watching Earl's flow, you know, I mean, it's a well-known fact for many years that the Triumph that appears in Stars of Magic is a simplified version of Triumph. And it's really easy and there's nothing wrong with it at all. It's absolutely wonderful. But, you know, Vern did the trick with strip out shuffles. And the Triumph shuffle is a much easier thing to do. It's actually a really easy and probably the easiest way to begin working with shuffles of that kind is with the Triumph shuffle. So I just don't know of all the variations because, you know, those guys knew a lot of Triumph variations. For example, it might have been the one in variations because what's happening is he's got the 4 cards that are being produced are reversed, right? And so he's able to show those cards really remember how the fellow made sure that the cards were really mixed face up and face down quite neatly, and then he did some cutting? That allows him to have a few reversed cards in the deck, and then he of course produces those cards face up and they're aces, and that's the thing. So I'm guessing there is a Triumph very early in the Variations book, and I'm guessing it's pretty close to it. You know, I would imagine literally the smoothest slip cut you'll ever see in your entire life.
Let's watch some more.
So smooth. He does it very neatly.
Well, most people believe that all of this sort of thing is attributed to sleight of hand, dexterity, the hand is quicker than the eye. that really isn't absolutely true. I do everything I can to promote that belief, but it's not absolutely true. It's all dependent upon luck. I'll be very honest with you. All of these things that you see down here are very, very dependent upon the element of luck. If I were to give the cards to any of you nice people here, you'd be surprised at what you could do yourselves. For instance, if you were to give the cards a simple little shuffle, such as I'm doing here, and then cut them, give them a simple cut on the table like that, one card might possibly fly face up out of the pack. Now, this card happens to be a king, which is a rather high card, but after all, there are 4 kings in each one of the decks, so it's really not that big of a coincidence. By the same token, you could also give the cards a simple cut, such as I'm doing here, and you might run across, just by luck, king number 2. That's the king of diamonds.
So
king
lucky.
of diamonds so far. Now, the third one, they do get progressively more difficult because obviously the more kings you are removing from the pack, the more difficult they are to find.
That's
but if
not
I
easy.
use a little bit of skill, not much, but just a little bit of skill and a lot of luck, and shuffle just like they do in Las Vegas, you might be able to find king number 3. There's king number 3. Now, to be very honest with you, on the last one, impossible to find by luck. For this one, I have to resort to actual
Here it comes.
magic.
Oh,
Like a mind of its own. There it comes.
Boy, that's
The King of
touch.
Hearts.
That's a touch right there.
You know, for most people, that ain't not a TV trick.
No,
Oh.
that is not.
No
a
way.
trick.
That is not the kind of thing that feels smooth and steady when the hot lights are flashing on you. You know what I mean?
You go for that one when you're feeling good.
And it's funny because I found another TV show that he was on as the close-up magician on a magic show, right? And it's in the late 90s. And he does a spot, and all he does is that production right there. He's using that production going into something else because he has the aces and the kings, and you know, you might know where he's going with that. But he used it as just a production of the 4 aces. He was in front of the W.C. Fields bar. He was in the basement of the castle, and he does just the production of the 4 aces. And that last production that he just did, that's that spooky revelation. He did that same thing, but you know, he didn't have an audience. It was him in front of like 3-4 people with cameras running. It wasn't like he was in front of an auditorium full of people. But man, talk about putting yourself on the spot. That's a very precarious little thing to rely on. You know, make sure you're not shaking in your hands so you can make that thing produce like that. That's really something.
Now, we all love Earl
Great.
Nelson, but Gary Nealon is our resident Earl Nelson-ophile here amongst the club. I mean, lots of us spent time with Earl, but Gary spent some deep time with that book, you know, and he says it's the hit and run aces, and it's only the production. The triumph part is not in the book. So that's very important. So quick question. Is anyone else here reminded of John Denver in the Oh God film?
Yeah.
Oh, with that haircut, you mean?
I was getting that vibe.
Yeah.
I
Totally.
sort of want to hear the song If You Like Pina Coladas while Earl is working.
It's oh
That's a
God, you
sad
devil,
song.
right? Isn't that the whole
It's
title?
a happy song. They get back together, but it's weird on the way.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, you know.
It's about very nice people, and they're kind
No.
of like having a reactionary thing toward the whole leftist experience. You know,
I don't know Earl, but I feel like he's nicer than that. I'm just
he's a
saying.
lot nicer than that. I know Alex's
That's what
family, and they're real Californian types. I feel like they're really into yoga. He's only smiling and laughing because
It's true.
there's an element of truth in that.
It's true.
I prefer that there be mystery there. I mean, you know, who am I to pull the curtain back on all of that?
I've told you. I won't say here the movies.
You told me. Yeah, that's a great thing.
Yeah, that's what Alex sounds like when he really hopes I don't go any further.
Everybody's got secrets. It's okay.
Tell the story, man. Tell the Vegas
Okay,
story.
this is a beautiful story. So Earl had his beautiful magic, and he was really an ideal magic castle act and an ideal act for the magical empire, because those are really situations where people come in to see magic. People are excited about the magic. They're like grown-ups, and they're like, magic show, magic show, magic show, and it's just what you want. Earl doesn't have the kind of personality that's about busking, right? He doesn't go out into the street, bang a drum, and tell everybody, shut up and bring your filthy kids over here. Get over here. You know, that's not his style. So he would do one of these routines, and then the biggest laugh line in his show was he would say, now, let's slow the frenetic pace. And he really was the Perry Como of magic, right? If any of y'all ever saw Eugene Levy do the Perry Como impression on SCTV, Perry Como is still alive. Hey, I'm gonna live forever. So that's Earl. So he says, now we'll slow the frenetic pace. And it used to knock the room dead.
That line is money for him.
And of course, because the show was like a quiet show, like that deadpan humor in that one spot actually made up for a lot of jokes that other people would have been peppering in. So when he got to the Magical Empire and he says, now let's slow the frenetic pace, and there was dead silence in the room, it really unmanned him. Like it was a bad thing, you know. It was a real problem because for Earl, losing that joke probably felt like losing nigh on 40% of the humor inherent in the 20-minute show, and he wasn't having it. So you'll notice that Variations, I think, was printed by Mark Wilson Productions. Earl used to work with Mark Wilson and Alan Wakeling back in the day, and so that was his crew that he was hanging around with. Just like when y'all saw me hanging around with Lee Asher back in the day, whenever I wasn't in that exact space, I was hanging out with Alex and Adam and partying, you know. So I picture Earl Nelson, Alan Wakeling, Mark Wilson, t-shirt, collared shirts open, collar over the lapels.
Absolutely. Medallions.
Up, gold rings on, you know what I mean? Walking around all the time.
Puffs pulled
Always
over the
sort of,
jacket.
right, always pointing at large jumbo cards wherever they go places, right? So he calls up Mark Wilson, and he says, Mark Wilson, in the stories, people always use both names. So I called Adam Grace, said, Adam Grace. So he calls Mark Wilson. He says, Mark Wilson, I need some help. And he tells Mark Wilson the problem. And Mark Wilson says, listen here, pal. Now, I can't do a Mark Wilson impression. He says, you can't say frenetic in Las Vegas. They don't understand what that means. Earl,
It sounds like a Barcelona problem.
Yeah.
let me help you. You say slow the breakneck pace. And Earl said, the hell you say. Mark Wilson says, trust me. And I always picture when he says, trust me.
I bet it worked like a charm. That's awesome.
Earl says, so he gets up to the moment, he does the whole aces, boom, 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 boom. Now we'll slow the breakneck pace. And he brings the house down. So
Mark Wilson
always
saved the
goes
day,
to show
dude.
ya, as H.L. Mencken said, no one ever went broke underestimating the taste of the American public.
That's right.
Slow the breakneck pace. Who would have guessed that the word frenetic was sinking Earl's act? And now I'm going to go ahead and throw another one of our dear magic friends on the fire. This is one of these humble brag things because I remember this. I remember thinking, you know, how truthful are Penn and Teller really? I remember sitting with Teller once and saying to him, so you're like a Broadway act. You know, you're like an act that kills in New York City. Anyone who's ever performed in both will tell you. It's not the same. It's not the same. Adam, you've performed a lot in New York City. It ain't the same, is it?
Not the same, no.
Barcelona, you performed a lot in New York City. It's not the same, is it?
Different group of people.
New York City, get a rope. So, what was I trying to tell you? So I says to Teller, what's it like performing in Las Vegas, really? Long pause, and Teller says, well, it's exactly the same. And I went, okay. And that's the whole end of the story.
Wow.
But it's not the same.
He is being
Not the
polite.
same.
I don't know if he was being polite. I know he's always been truthful with me. All I'm saying is he's had a great time. He's been performing there for 20 years. And I'll tell you, they have the smartest magic show that there is.
And if they got to dumb down words in the show, he doesn't have to deal with it. So it's the same.
I don't think they do. I think they do the show exactly the way they do it. And I honestly think they probably bring in the most intellectual crowd in Las Vegas relative to your whoever's doing. What's the name of your friend, Adam? Your ex friend?
Who, Lance Burton?
Goldrake. Remember when we passed that fellow that your dad bought him a tiger once?
Yeah.
We went to meet Johnny.
Right.
What happens is you drive through Las Vegas, and what you see is on billboards everywhere. You see dudes that used to work the parlor, like on billboards with like superimposed cats, like large cats. And it's weird because I thought cats were like not hip anymore. Are cats?
Yeah, I thought that was over.
Are tiger shows out?
Yeah,
Tell us. Are
yeah.
tiger shows done?
Yeah, they're done.
Pretty much. Yeah.
What if the tigers know how to deal the cards into two piles and cut and turn over?
Different kind of show. Might be like
Not Kate's, not Cato's, just Kate's cats. All right, my medication wore off. Let's fire it up.
More magic.
more.
I'm going to rise to the occasion here and show you something, not with a full deck of cards, but only with these 8 cards that we've so conveniently come across here. As a matter of fact, the kings and the aces being the highest cards in the deck make that rather easy, but I think I'm going to eliminate the kings. This will make it even easier to understand. We'll get back to those in just a moment. Just concentrate on the aces for a moment, if you will. And we'll do it one ace at a time, very, very slowly. There's the ace of hearts. Watch.
Look at that.
Very slowly.
Indeed.
A slight
Oh,
discrepancy.
baby!
Now, that king is supposed to be over there, you see. What's happening is they're changing places one card at a time. That was the first one to go across. Watch it happen.
So sweet.
Again. Another king, another ace change places. Now, that does leave me with only a couple of aces remaining, which quickly become a couple of kings. That
Boom!
part's nice. But it would be even better, I think, if I could just give the cards a little shake like that. And start over again with the aces and the kings.
Gracie, hit pause.
Thank you.
Couple things there. First of all, y'all just saw Earl Nelson do the Elmsley count exactly the way I showed you how to do it during count night. Bless you, Ethan Ross. It was not with that grip way down at the back right corner. I know you think I'm not paying attention, but I heard that. Right? But that same exact pacing and sound and rhythm. Second, if you go back to that first double, you'll see the total difference between California and New York in an instant. When Earl clicks that card just once to emphasize its singularity, it's conceivable that that's really what's happening, right? He's not doing this, right? As old Shakespeare used to say, methinks the lady doth protest too much. Don't click when you're not being chased. Am I right? Now, you clever members, go back and make sure to watch our last hour favorite tricks, and you can really now pinpoint Gary's cool handlings of the stuff in Reset, because that's Earl doing it. Again, incidentally, you guys on the panel, you notice that Earl is doing stuff on TV. You know, there was an old TV show when we were growing up called You Can't Do That on Television.
Yeah, that should be the theme.
And it describes Earl's double card handling.
Yeah, it's pretty ballsy to do that level of very difficult technical magic while the camera is a foot from your hands. I mean, it just goes to show though the touch that he has. You can't really shake the guy. I don't think
rattle.
you can.
He doesn't rattle.
No, he doesn't.
And if you're a fan of that material, like if you're, at the time when those books came out, if you were able to see that television show, you'd have an example of how it's done under the lights, and you see that that's what the ideal is. That's what the bar is, what this guy's doing. It's amazing. He's doing all those hard moves under the lights in front of cameras. I mean, that's a lot of pressure, and he's doing it looking like he's as cool as a cucumber, like it's not even a big deal. It's just another day at the office. It's very inspirational, man. It's very inspirational.
When I first moved to Las Vegas in 1996, and I went over to Lee Asher's house in the afternoon, and he said, Earl Nelson's coming over to hang out, that's kind of when I knew why I left the provinces.
Right.
That's why I was like, that's what happens here at lunchtime, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Steve Forster should at least win a point, because he has noticed it is possible, if not John Denver from Oh God, Bob Ross is our next good bet for Earl's
He was just the coolest guy. Right?
parentage.
The
All right.
70s. The 70s, man. What are you gonna do? The coolest.
If you wanted to take a nap on a nice Sunday afternoon, you throw on some Bob Ross.
If you're not into
Next thing you
Goga,
know, it's dinner time. You know what I'm saying?
you have half a brain.
Good, beautiful piece of artwork before you go eat.
Yeah. See a pretty picture. Bunch of little friends over by the lake.
Whoa, Ethan Ross burying the lead. Our own Ethan Ross was related to Bob Ross. I take back what I said about your Elmsley count
Is that
technique.
true?
Carry forward, young. You know what?
I hope it's true.
Are you having fun? Because next time they say I'm going to say Ethan Ross is related to my brother Ethan. Please tell me that.
Oh, he said, I wish.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
I hope it's true.
You tried being Ethan's brother a while. We'll see if you wish. We'll see. Tell me, is there more Earl the Pearl waiting for us?
Yeah.
I'd like to do something right now. You've been so kind as to help me out with this, in the way of what I call loosely a challenge type of effect in magic, and that is I invite you to watch as closely as you possibly can, and I'm going to do it as slowly and deliberately as I possibly can. And for it, I'm only going to use a few of the cards, only a few cards. Now, it's no secret how many cards I use. In fact, let me count them again so that there's no mistake. I should have precisely 12 cards. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Ah, I think I've got one too many
extra
cards
card.
here, which can easily be eliminated. You don't need the Queen of Diamonds for this. Now, the idea is really simplicity itself. I'm going to utilize also, besides the 12 cards, the ever-popular 4 aces. Now, the reasons that magicians use those so much is because they are the highest cards in the pack, and they're the easiest cards to remember. Now, it works out mathematically that I can allow 3 cards for each one of the aces, and that's exactly what I'll do. Now, I want you to remember one thing. The aces will stay face up and in full view at all times.
Perfect.
I love to watch it. I do.
I wonder, Charlotte, if I could ask you just to place your hand over that pile of cards. Would you do that? Great.
Pardon
Would you
me?
like to please name, Gene, any
feel like
one
I
of the
saw
3
everything.
remaining aces you like? It doesn't make any difference.
You're jaded.
Sure.
No. I mean in a good way.
Ace of
Like,
hearts?
I felt like I
That's
saw
right
all
over
those
here.
cards.
He didn't do anything.
Watch the Ace of Hearts,
Yeah.
if you will.
Cards may have been in his pocket. Look at it.
Yeah.
No longer present. Would you like to also name one of the other 2 aces?
Ace of clubs.
The Ace of Clubs it is. Watch the Ace of Clubs.
Get ready for that Elmsley.
One last look at it, all right?
Snap. Boom, 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 boom.
Such a great way to do it. I love
He shouldn't be pulling on that last card.
How about the Ace of
No,
Diamonds?
Ethan
All
Roth.
right with you?
We'll try that.
The Ace of Diamonds. The Ace of Diamonds, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to let you see right to the last.
Oh, nasty, nasty Hobbit.
Mhm.
Dirty.
Thank you. That's
That's why we love Earl.
Earl
not the
Nelson.
full thing, obviously. I don't
Dirty
want Charlotte to
clean.
touch anything that may be under your hand. But as dramatically as you know how, lift your hand straight up in the air. Would you turn those cards that are face down, face up, one at a time? That's
Boom.
Boom. And
That's 3.
boom.
Thank you very much.
And as a bonus
Thank you.
effect, he managed to take that concave bend out of the cards just by snapping his fingers.
a little squish.
Like she just automatically those cards were smooth and even. Does anyone else get disturbed when a playing card just seems to have been living in a different orientation than the rest of the deck? It's like, what is it? That deck was living in a house, but those cards look like they've been living in an apartment or maybe even a tenement. What's happening?
There was something that he did in that routine where he showed those 3 cards on the first piles, and then he turned those over before he dealt the 3 on the last pile, and I felt like I had seen all 12 cards.
That was a great subtlety, right?
It actually
really was.
fooled me. It actually fooled me. I forgot. I was able to forget what we were doing until he got a little further because it just went by.
Let's not forget, because at first he shows the cards, then he counts the cards, right? And then he's got that extra card.
Can we watch it again? Can we just watch it again? Was that extra card the thing?
It was something.
It
no,
was.
yeah, it was a way to show that extra card as potentially having a back as he pulled out a different card and put it in. It was all just a very delicate little dance that was happening with those cards so that you just felt like you saw everything.
Let's watch it again. I would rather watch Earl do a trick twice than see someone else's new trick.
All right, let's do it. Let's
And
watch.
incidentally, while you're watching it, I just wanted to let y'all know, listening to Earl deal cards, he's got, you guys, you guitarists, you have tone. When you listen to the way Earl deals his cards to the table, it's got the most lovely soft snap. You need a good card with nice body for that. You need a good B-stock card with a nice snap. Go ahead, Steve.
I was just gonna say,
Possibly
Earl,
can.
as a guitar player, we would say he's very tasty.
Oh, yeah?
Tasty.
There's a lot of tasty licks in there.
A lot
Yeah.
of tasty licks in there.
Look at those sweet thumbs.
Oh,
Look, now he's moving too fast. He's still.
slow down, Earl.
It's like they're purring.
He checked the back of that card.
Oh, what's going
He's
on?
on TV, man.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, but I didn't know that was part of the deal, but maybe it was. I think he was double, triple checking.
Yeah, he's doing a little checking.
Yeah, okay.
It's fine.
Fair.
It's fine.
Looks like a few pieces of furniture just came out of Mom's attic there. Look at this guy. Ooh,
Got an ace over there and an ace over
I
there.
call that the long deck diamond. Okay,
Buy some new ones for the TV appearance, man.
he did.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
They were in his pocket. Be nice. Here we go. This is what Adam was talking about.
Great. That's a great subtlety, man.
But I'm still, you see, I didn't notice this bit. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. I just got smoked.
Yeah, that's good.
I want you to take it back earlier to when he removed that stuff from the deck. Nah, don't do it. There was a commercial break. Listen to wait. Look at this. Look at how he does each one different. A lot of folks don't do that. A lot of folks. That's one method there. It's the same basic situation,
Mm-hmm.
but that's one type of vanish. Now, rather than do the same thing twice, which is like boring. Now he's doing a second to third, which leaves us into a sweet Elmsley. Pulling on that last card. I'll bring that up next time I see him. Like, Earl,
I saw
why are you
you
pulling
once
on
in the
that card?
70s. I saw you once in the 70s doing the Selmsley count.
Yeah, I saw this video. I want to critique
Look at this. Look at this. This is sneaky. That ace is
This
in the
is
pocket.
really good.
Boom! That's what that is.
That's really cool.
Right there. When we're saying tasty licks,
That's
that's
a
a tasty lick.
Hey, y'all, just so y'all know what Earl did there was just a simple bottom deal off of a packet, right? Which is the easier than it looks. You can take two cards and try that yourself, and it'll look just as good. Just a quick note about Earl Nelson. Out of all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world, and all the card guys you could ever know, if I had the temerity to be such a foolish guy as to be like, Earl, why were you pulling with that last card in the 70s? You know, what was going on there? Earl would say, you know, I made the decision to pull that card right before showtime, and I didn't even know then how it was going to work out, but it has sat with me ever since. I don't know that he would have that experience with this exact phase, but that's the kind of guy Earl is. You would say, hey, Earl, what's going on with that? What was up with that double? He would be like, that double? I know what double you mean. You mean in the 4.5 phase of the 7 phase thing? Right before the D'Amico? I'd be like, yes. He'd be like, let me break it down for you. Earl,
This has haunted me for 30 years.
he's passionate. He's passionate about a sweet dealing. Do we get one more? Do we get one more tasty lick at him? Or are you going to call it, Daddy?
No, let's take a look at one more. It's a quick one, but it's a good, tasty Earl lick as well. All right, here we go.
Play one for Jay. I saw his magic room the other
Well, not
day.
surprisingly, the cavorting aces does use the 4 aces. We'll only concern ourselves with the black ones right now. One on the face and one at the back of the deck. One at
Look
the
at that
face,
thinking.
one at the back. Interestingly enough, if I just give the cards a little shake like that,
Jerry's Nuggets.
the aces are gone. Well, not completely gone, because if we
like
look
an
right
Elliott
through the center of the pack, we'll find them together in the middle. 2 black aces. course, it does stand to reason that if we just reverse those actions and shake them once again, that the aces would come right back to their original position. Let's make it a little bit more interesting by placing the two red aces in the center. Remember, black on the face, red aces in the center, and a black ace at the back. Red on the inside, black on the outside. Until I shake the cards like that, it is. And of course, then we have a red ace there, a red ace at the back of the pack, and closer examination reveals the two black in the center. Now let's leave those two black in the center for just a moment and add a red ace to the face and a red ace to the back. A little shake, no red aces, only to be trapped in the center between those two black aces.